Hello everyone and welcome to our next in line webinar series. This time we have a very interesting subject for you, that is wireless and the PCI. It's a very dicey subject, lot of you know haziness surrounding it, and so that's why we have taken up this subject. And thank you again for showing up in such large numbers. It is such a huge encouragement for us. So without further ado, I'll jump right into the subject. Now, at a glance, what we'll be looking at? We'll be looking at two areas of PCI DSS. First is wireless, of course, and and we'll be looking at two points. That is one, what are the applicable requirements for all for all networks, whether you have wireless in place or not. And secondly is for those companies, for those organizations where they have wireless networks in the scope of PCI DSS. Typically speaking, all the people feel, most of the companies that I have seen feel that only if they have wireless within the enterprise that to connect it to the card distribution layer, to the card data environment, then only those controls are applicable. But that's not the case. There are some areas pertaining to even your organization. If you have zero wireless in your card data environment, then too it is applicable. And for those companies who have shown up, for those individuals who have shown up, even though you're not coming under PCI at all, we do have quite a few people like that also who attend our webinars, and I'm thankful for them for coming. What I can say is that whatever you are going to hear today is not just only and only for PCI. No, these are extremely good best practices that you can use for even your securing your own wireless within your own enterprise. So stay with me for a wonderful 30 minutes more. And if you have any queries, feel free to punch it in, and I'll take it up if it is possible, that is. Okay, that's about me, a brief about me. I've been in the industry for almost like a quarter of a century. I'm a PCI QSA. I've done my CISSP, CISA, CRISC, many other things. I've been working as a consultant for most of my life. I've been running my company for like 13 years now. So without getting into much about myself, the applicability, as I said earlier, we'll be looking at the generally applicable wireless requirements for all organizations. Look at this, whether regardless of whether wireless technology is intentionally used in the CDE, or whether wireless networks are in the scope of your organization. Either of these circumstances, these controls would be applicable. So first we'll get into the generally applicable and then into the specifics for in-scope wireless networks. The decision-making process, which is applicable to PCI DSS, when you're making a decision as to what controls come under it or not, there's a wonderful flowchart that we have put up over here. So you have to comply with the PCI DSS wireless requirements. If there is any wireless deployed in the organization, no, then okay, check for unauthorized. We'll get into all these things in detail, but we have made a wonderful flowchart over here, of course, taken directly from PCI DSS information banks. So there are these, decision-making process flowchart is there. What all controls come under it and not. So this is like a snapshot of everything. So what's the risk like with PCI with wireless in the enterprise? Just to give a brief background about it. What is security? Now, when you're looking at wireless, your major number one concern would be Wardriving, and understand that in many companies, many countries, many states, Wardriving is not considered as a crime. What is Wardriving? We'll get into it. With regards to vulnerability, wireless LAN, understand they are susceptible to a huge level of vulnerabilities, mostly by misconfiguration. So I wouldn't say like the operating systems are vulnerable left, right, and center. Of course, in some cases they are, but in 90% of the cases, it will be a misconfiguration that goes along with a wireless device. So we'll get into it. Now, what are the wireless threats? We have put that into 4 categories. First is the unstructured, where there are individuals using, mostly free tools and gimmicks and stuff to hack into systems. And the next on the structured threats, hackers who are highly motivated and technically competent. It could be industrial espionage, it could be people who are looking for credit card details, people who are looking for user IDs, passwords, and stuff. And then there's the external threats. That is somebody working into your network from outside. Again, it could be a structured or unstructured threat. For wireless, see, look at it this way. Uh, Whichever company you're working for, even though we may come as a consultant appointed by the board themselves, I cannot just come in and plug in my network jack into the network jacks in your office. People will be watching, they'll stop me and stuff. But with a wireless, I can be sitting in the parking lot of your building and hack into it. Or I could be even outside of the boundary of your company premises and still snoop into your network. That's the pervasiveness of a wireless network. And then, of course, there are the internal threats, even as per Forrester Research or Gartner Research and so many other research institutes worldwide. The number one threat to your organization will always be your own internal people. Look at it, 60 to 80% of reported incidents are because of the internal threats, people within your office, not the outsiders. So security fundamentals. Now this will be an eye opener for many. Wireless attacks can be broken into three categories. You're looking at the reconnaissance, that is a background work to be done. There's an access attack that is actually breaking into the wireless network, and the denial of service or the stealing of data. Look at this. This person is in his car. He's got his laptop over here, and the antenna is connected. Can you guess what's this bottle over here? Can you guess what is the bottle over here? Anybody? A show of hands of what you think this bottle is over there for. That bottle is an enhanced wireless antenna, and you know what it is made up of? If you just look at it carefully, over here, it's a bottle, it's a box of Pringles. You may have eaten Pringles, it's those potato wafers and stuff. So using just a Pringles box, you can design a very sophisticated antenna. Oh man, this just jumped a bit. Okay. So reconnaissance is the unauthorized discovery and mapping of system devices. Now again, this will be like a robber before breaking into your building could just be standing outside of your gates and looking at how your building is placed and where are the windows, where are the doors. That's not a crime. Anybody can stand outside any building and look inside. So that's what Wardriving is all about, to identify which are the wireless networks where and how are they, configured and stuff. So this is happening very, very widely, even in India. So it's not that it happens only in the United States of America. It happens even in India. But simply speaking, people are not sensitive enough. Look at this. There are literally this Wardriving maps available on the internet for free, for people to know which are the open wireless, wireless networks in the neighborhood. So you can latch in for free wireless, for tapping into the network, for stealing data, for snipping user IDs, passwords. All those things are possible. This is available on the internet. Now, what are the toys for hackers? Look at this. They have taken a normal wireless antenna and converted that into your snooping device. You can even take this dish antenna, which is used by this dish TV operators to fashion out wireless antenna. So you need not even be maybe within 50 meters of the wireless access point. You could be like a few hundred meters away, and you can still listen into wireless network. So don't think that, okay, my house is isolated, there are no companies nearby, so nobody can listen in. He could be positioned even half a kilometer away, half a mile away, and still listen into your wireless network. Look at this. Pringles box is emerging as a fast favorite for as a wireless antenna, enhanced wireless antenna. Now, after the wireless networks has been identified, the hacker would typically snip into the network and try and exploit some weak or non-existing passwords, or try and exploit the web interface of the access points. Now, understand, for most people, including me and including you, I'm sure you wouldn't like to lay out, costly and very painful wire networks in your house. Everybody wants a wireless in the house. It's almost taken for granted nowadays. For connecting your mobile phones, for connecting your laptops, you could be sitting anywhere. You could be sitting in your living room, in your bedroom, in your washrooms, anywhere, and you can access the internet. So you need a wireless network. Now these wireless networks, access points are available for something as low as $40. So just for $40, you can get your house, converted into a Wi-Fi network. So including that, some people even carry that to their offices for whichever purposes that they may have in mind, and that's where the problem happens. A rogue API attack. What happens in this? Rogue means unauthorized. AP is an access point. So it could be somebody who just takes an access point to office for connecting his personal laptop and downloading movies on the company bandwidth, or connecting his or her mobile phone to the laptop, or it could be simply somebody who, you get a lot of free softwares on the internet for converting your laptop into a hub, into a wireless access point, to which you can then connect your mobile phone or anybody else, or give the bandwidth to somebody else. So you didn't even carry a hardware access point to office for this purpose. So the rogue access point, the unauthorized access point, could be even somebody installing those wireless hotspot softwares on his or her laptop for unauthorized use. So a hacker would typically break into those unauthorized access points. Now, once that is exploited, then the hacker can easily launch a denial of service attack, which could take over entire networks and disrupt work or even steal data. Look at this. There are so many free softwares, like WLAN, Jack, and so many, which you can use to even disconnect entire wireless networks. So entire productivity in that organization is out. Now this is just a denial of service. Somebody can even use that to steal data from your organization. So let us jump directly into PCI. What could be the generally applicable wireless requirements for you? First and foremost, maintain a hardware inventory. Now, of course, I know, as I have written over here, it's not a mandate by PCI DSS to have an inventory of your wireless networks. But let me ask you, requirement 11.1 asks you to identify whether whether you have any authorized wireless technologies in your environment. Now, when you use the word authorized, it by default means that I can turn it around and ask you, are there any unauthorized wireless technologies in your organization? So how will you differentiate between what is your authorized and unauthorized technologies, unless you have an inventory which clearly states that these 5 wireless access points are authorized and whatever rest, if at all, are unauthorized. That's where the number one thing that you need to do is have an up-to-date wireless inventory. It can even help you identify maybe some authorized wireless access points have been rolled out but simply not included in the inventory, or maybe some taken out but not included in the inventory. And so a wireless inventory is always the first stop to do, the first thing to do. And if you are a sufficiently large organization, this inventory, these large organizations even set up wireless IDS and IPS systems which can detect unauthorized access points within the organization and jam them. So unless you have an inventory, how those systems are ever going to find out which are the authorized and unauthorized systems in the enterprise? Next thing, now that you have an inventory, you need to test for unauthorized access points. These are the requirements 11.1 of PCI DSS, and you can see that it is very important to identify, test for the presence of wireless access points and detect unauthorized wireless access points on a quarterly basis. As a QSA, whether you have wireless in your enterprise or not, whether you're using wireless within your hard data environment or not, this is a report that I would want to see. Show me that there are no unauthorized wireless access points within your enterprise. Now again, you can use automated scanning tools and or physical inspection. I would always suggest both, because you can just open up your laptop and go to the wireless scan, go to the wireless area, go to the wireless icon, and you can see maybe a dozen or more access points showing up. How do you know which one are within your enterprise and which one are outside? One of the most silliest way in which I've seen companies satisfying this requirement is simply giving to the QSA a screenshot of those, that wireless icon within your on your laptop, it simply shows how many wireless access points are active in your office. Now that survey can even show me the wireless access points which are out of the office. Is that there is no way that I can really find out whether that particular access point showing up in the scan is within your enterprise or outside of it. That's where those automated scanning tools will check for the signal strength, check from where the signal is coming from. All those things becomes very important. And plus a physical inspection. Has somebody hidden it somewhere behind the wall, which can pull an automated scanning tool into feeling that maybe the signal is coming from the next door office and not my office. So this thing becomes very important. And the next thing would be segmenting your wireless network. Segmenting again, whether regardless of the purpose, that is whether you are using it for your card data environment or not, the perimeter firewalls have to be implemented within your wireless, between a wireless network and the enterprise. If you have it for the CD, still it is required. If you don't have it within the CD, still it is required. So if you have wireless within the enterprise, even though it is not within the cardholder data environment, the firewall has to be there to show that the segmentation has been done. If or not, you are defaulting on a very poor PCI requirement. Again, for those companies who are attending, who don't have a wireless, who are not really coming under PCI, still this becomes as an extremely good PCI strategy for securing your wireless in the enterprise. A few segmentation tips. We just put this together. I really hope it helps you. Completely isolate out of scope wireless networks. Completely isolate. So you cannot just say, oh, this is not within the card data environment, so it doesn't really matter. Yes, it does. If it is even outside of your card data environment, but within your enterprise network, the wireless network has to pass through a firewall. Now, now here this scenario. Let's assume you have a wireless network which is outside of your card data environment, separated by a firewall, but still some traffic is coming from the wireless network into the card data environment. That is not acceptable. You cannot say there's a firewall in place, so it is fine. No, it is not fine. If you say it is fine, then that entire wireless network becomes an in-scope for PCI DSS. So obviously, for the sake of proving your point, you need to log all the traffic between the firewall, which is logged by the firewall between the wireless network and the card data environment. Now again, all the firewall and router rule sets have to be reviewed and verified at least twice in a year. The next is, okay, that was for the generally acceptable wireless tips for companies who are having a wireless, who are not having wireless in the enterprise at all, or are having wireless in the enterprise but not as a part of the CDE. Now this is for wireless networks which is within the card data environment. So this is going to be a bit more complicated, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible for you. Again, make a note of your questions. Please ask your questions and I'll do my best to answer it out for you. These are the 6 level of controls. We'll be going through each one of them and what would be the suggested tips and tricks to take care of it, and what points you need to keep in mind. So these are the 6 areas now we'll be getting into, each one at a time. The first is the physical security of wireless devices. The first one is 9.1.3, restrict physical access to wireless access points. So for many for many wireless network devices, if you have physical access to the wireless access point, I can quickly do a reset and log on to it using my using the default credentials of the access point, which is 99% of the time printed on the access point in itself. Not just that, at the back of the access point, there could be open LAN points which can be used for direct connection to the network, bypassing all the other security measures. So it is required that the physical security of the access point becomes of tantamount importance. It is also possible that somebody could you know, set up your access point in a promiscuous mode, so all the wireless traffic gets diverted to a gateway, which then intercepts and sniffs out your card numbers, your user IDs, passwords, and stuff. So physical security is extremely important for the access points. More often than not, you see just those access points just hanging on the wall somewhere in within a PCI environment. That is simply not acceptable. Tips and guides for this thing: if you're mounting your access point, then make it so high or located in such an area or a closet or secure server room. Most probably that's what we always suggest, so that they are not within easy reach of unauthorized individuals. The chassis has to be tamper proof, so nobody can just just open it like that. This third point, it could be one of the areas that you might want to keep in mind while buying your access point. There are some access points now. Since we are vendor agnostic, I will not discuss products with you, but there are products in the market where you can set the signal strength, so the access point signal won't go out of your physical boundaries of your office in a very strong manner. So if you've got a very small card data environment and you're setting up a really good access point, it's very well possible that the signals of that wireless network is not just going beyond your card data environment room, but also out of the office building in itself. But many of these access points allow you to even lessen the power of your access point so that they are visible clearly only within your room. So you may want to buy one of those boxes if you are locating your wireless within the card data enterprise. If you're using pre-shared keys, ensure that they are whatever the mobile phones or the laptops that's being used, they are not storing it in a non-encrypted manner. In many systems that you can see, even on Windows systems, you can see that if you have access to the system and to the laptop or the desktop, you can go into the network properties and retrieve the password of the access point. That is simply not acceptable. Automatic lockout is required, and use a wireless monitoring system. So in case any hubs are lost, access points are lost, you should be in a position to get notified that there has been a loss or there has been a theft within the enterprise. Change the default settings. That is a hardening of those PCI DSS of those wireless access points becomes very important to you. It is required that all the default SNMP keys, encryption keys gets updated, changed as per the requirements of hardening for those devices. PCI doesn't really recommend what to do for which box. You can look up the hardening guides of those specific OEMs. Okay, we'll get into the details. Now, all the default pre-shared keys are changed. Enterprise mode is recommended. What is enterprise mode? We'll look it up also towards the end where we are taking care of encryption and decryption. Disable SNMP. Now, most of the data that passes on SNMP is in clear text. If you really need SNMP for monitoring, use an SNMP v3. Change the SSID. Now, SSID is when you go to the networking icon of your laptop and the number of access point that show up, the name in front is the SSID. So ensure that you change the SSID from default so it doesn't even reflect what sort of a box it is, like a Linksys or a Cisco or whatever else that you are buying out there, or Netgear, and so many other boxes are there. And most importantly, do not put your organization's name in the SSID. Then you are setting yourself up as a target to hackers, because now they know which SSIDs they should be targeting their efforts on. Now again, set the transmit power, as we discussed earlier, to the lowest power required to accomplish the job. This is something that is, network time protocol. Ensure that all the access points clocks are in sync with the rest of the devices within the enterprise. Any idea why this is important? That is synchronizing the clocks of the access point with all the other devices in the organization. We can take a minute. I'm going to the comments, so if somebody has the answer, you can always punch it in. Why do you think it is important to synchronize all your access point clocks? with the network devices in the organization? Take a minute. Anyone? Okay. Okay. I'm getting a few. Okay, so the answer would be to ensure that the log trails are in synchronization. Otherwise, you never know. Your access point, if you're doing a forensics on that, you don't know what was the chronological sequence of events. And of course, disable all the unnecessary applications and ports. Most of the access points come equipped with DHCP, that is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Very important that you disable it. Disable the zero config property of the wireless modem, because this is very important. The reason being, somebody can just press that zero config button on the access point and connect to the access point without even having a password in place. So take care of that. What about Bluetooth? I'm sure you'll be surprised, but Bluetooth is also considered as wireless. It's not just the access point that you have within the enterprise. PCI DSS also considers a Bluetooth as a wireless network. So because you can set up a wireless network using Bluetooth also. Again, most of those Bluetooth networks, Bluetooth devices have the default code of 0000. I'm sure you're aware of that. So most importantly, that you change the pin, make it sufficiently random and not let it be 0000. And in case of any loss or any sort of theft, ensure that the users are notified and access removed. Wireless intrusion prevention and access. Again, this is required to monitor all sorts of data in and out of the enterprise. Now, you can have many organizations are using automated tools for that. These tools, IDS and IPS, can do three critical things. They can identify rogue wireless access points and contain it. It can detect any sort of unsafe activity or configuration, because it is able to tap into all your authorized access points. Anything that has changed, or maybe the password is not good, or maybe DHCP or some unhealthy protocols have been enabled, it will stop it or raise an alert on that. And finally, last but not the least, detection of DOS attacks, or somebody is trying to brute force a wireless, it will keep you informed on that. It is always advised to do that. That is, use a centrally controlled wireless IDS and IPS system. Historical logging of wireless access. It is required within 90 days of, as per normal PCI guidelines. 3 months on site, 12 months and 12 months off site. 3 months immediately it is required. So you need to do logging of even your wireless devices in the CDE. Of course, ensure that your IPS is correctly configured and managing. Correlate the wireless logging. So if you've got an SIM in place, ensure that even your wireless feeds into the SIM devices. And last but not the least, policies and procedures. We'll come into this also as we move along. This will be interesting. Strong wireless authentication and encryption. Now, this becomes like an Achilles heel for many companies, and many of them get away with a pre-shared key, as I'm sure that most of the companies that even I have seen do that. How many of your enterprises where you're using wireless? I'm sure that most of you sitting in this webinar are using wireless within the enterprise. So let me ask you, how many of you are using there are two modes if you get into the configuration. How many of you are using the enterprise mode, and how many of you are using the personal mode for encryption of your data on the wireless? How many of you are using enterprise? Is there anybody here who's using enterprise systems data encryption methodologies? Anybody who's using enterprise? Very few, as I had guessed. Very few. If you wish, you can drop me a comment on that as to how do you, whether you are using the personal or whether you're using enterprise. But for a personal, what defines it is that when you're using a personal mode of encryption on a wireless device, you're using a pre-shared key. That's a major difference. And in an enterprise, you're using the IEEE standard 802.1x, where all the users are given a unique key for access to the wireless. In some good companies, we have seen they're using commercial tools for managing the wireless systems. So all the users are logging on using their Active Directory user IDs or passwords. Everybody is monitored. Everything is taken logged and stuff like that. You can even do that. That's what happens in the enterprise mode. Tips and tricks on that. It is recommended, first of all, to use a minimum 13 character random passphrase with AES. If you don't have a choice and you're using a pre-shared key system, ensure that minimum 13 characters with uppercase, lowercase, and all those, rigmarole, you know what I mean, to be there. If you can use a centralized management system, that's all the more better. If you have multiple gateways within the organization, it can take care of that. So all the users get, logged on to the wireless network as required. Only those users that you allow can log on at specific times. You can have guest access defined for a specific period of time, maybe for an hour or two. That's possible. Now, use of strong cryptography. It is again required. Understand over here. You may say open public networks, transmission over open public networks. You'll say, where is the wireless in this? But understand one thing. Wireless is treated as per, if you read this standard requirement, below that you will see wireless networks are treated as open public networks. So this entire 4.1 applies to it. And I'm also aware that I've written 4.1.b and 4.1.e. I've not written because I didn't find it really relevant, so I took it out. It goes up to H, F, G, H, but I just put down that which I believe is very relevant to a general wireless enterprise rollout. And so data encryption is a must under any circumstances. Use only SSL v3. You cannot use TLS1 or SSL v1 or v2, whatever be the case. And use at least, if you can use AES, all the more better. TKIP is still better, but AES is better. Use 256 bits minimum when encrypting the data. And as you've seen earlier, physically segment your unsecure wireless networks from your secure networks. It is not guideline. It's a mandate from PCI. It has to be segregated. Last but not the least, the policies and procedures. If you download the standard from PCI DSS, the entire segment from 12.3.1 to 12.3.10 are on the policies and procedures with regards to critical technologies like wireless. Everything is there: the asset inventory, the training, the incident management, change management. Everything has to be written, even for your wireless networks. But again, this is mandated only if there is wireless within your card data environment. If it is outside, it's not a mandate, but it's a good practice, and I would suggest you to follow it. The tips and tricks over here: ensure that all the policies are implemented and require explicit management approval. It cannot be anybody who has a password can jump onto the wireless network in the card data environment. Again, for Bluetooth, ensure that you don't leave it out, because you can have a wireless network based on Bluetooth. Awareness training, extremely important. Let people know that in the networking scenario, wireless networking is the weak link in the chain that they may need to ensure that the organization is not compromised from the wireless scenario. They can, if you're using pre-shared key, just think about it. If you're using pre-shared key, it is very well possible that somebody somebody within your organization has passed on the key to some other person in some other department or even outside of the enterprise, and somebody is in an unauthorized manner accessing the data. If you are okay, just as a thought, if I may mention that to you, what you can do is, if I'm using pre-shared key, I've not made a note, so if you want to make a note of it, perhaps you may want to. That is, if you're stuck with using a pre-shared key, you can use a multiple of controls to ensure that just somebody having the pre-shared key cannot just log on to the network. It could be, you can have a MAC ID filtering. You can put the MAC IDs, only those MAC IDs. Again, MAC IDs can be spoofed, but it is still a control. You can say that disable DHCP and only a specific set of IP addresses with a specific tied with a specific set of MAC ID tools. MAC IDs can log on to the network. You can in tandem also lessen the power of your access point so that it gets very difficult to access without sophisticated tools. Access that wireless network from outside of your card data environment. So you can have multiple controls working together in tandem, and you can make your pre-shared key network still a relatively much more safer network to use. Okay, now towards the end, there are quite a few reference documents that you may want to refer to as you go along to learn more, because I just have like 30-35 minutes to take you through this, and I can't do a brilliant job on that. Of course, as we're coming to the end of it, do drop in your queries, and I will for sure answer it maybe now, but we're reaching the end of my time, or I'll answer you by email as I always have. Now, these are the past webinars for those of you who just joined. These are the past webinars that has been done, that is managing our outsourced vendor, log management in the PCI environment, best practices in the e-commerce security. We did cloud the last time, which was my all-time best. Rather, hundreds of people had logged on to the webinar. And what you're seeing currently, that is wireless in the PCI environment. And the upcoming is going to be extremely interesting, a topic never touched on by many experts across the world. That is, how do you handle PCI DSS in the virtualized environment? It's going to be held on July 27th, exactly 1 month down the line. And if my guess is correct, it's a Thursday. The timing would be the same. Even if you are unable to attend, do register so that at least you will get the recording of the webinar at the end of the completion. So if you have any questions, do punch it in now, and there is a survey at the end of it. I would really appreciate it. We're doing this for free, we're not charging anybody, but your comments mean a huge deal for us. Do drop in a line if you are not happy with what I said. Do drop in. I'll take it as a learning curve and try and do better the next time. But do drop in, do try and enter, give your feedback on the survey at the end of it. And I look forward to seeing you again next month. And do pass on the invites that you get to your friends or colleagues who may be interested in this thing. That's our YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/Vista InfoSec official, to subscribe to it. And you'll be getting, we put in a lot of videos. We put in hacking video, so normal information videos, and you'll be getting the notification for that. So thank you again, and again, let me see if I can take up any questions. But I'm reaching the end of my show for now, and I'll be in touch. Thank you again for all that you have done, for all of you to who are here, and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye bye.